Hi, my name is Matt Tratner, and I am a licensed social worker and therapist. And one of the topics I wanted to talk about today was specifically that affects the LGBTQ community. I also often work with people with depression, anxiety, fears, phobias, personality disorders, but something closer to home, because I am a member of the LGBTQ plus community, is the importance of identifying internalized homophobia. And what I wanted to talk about was what it is exactly, because to some degree, all members of the LGBTQ community have experienced, to some degree, internalized homophobia. So, internalized homophobia is the socialized or ideals of society of what heteronormative or what masculinity is or femininity, and the social constructs around that. And so when we are taught at an early age, many of us that have shared with me that they realize probably around the age of 5 that they're different. For example, you'd have like a little boy who might be playing with dolls instead of playing with sports, or a little girl who wants to play sports or play with trucks. You might find a boy playing with doll houses, trying on mommy's shoes, any of these, which immediately, oftentimes in the past, a child would be reprimanded. Don't do that. They'd be punished for being their authentic selves. And in that early stages, recognizing that your natural, authentic behaviors are being socially recognized as wrong and inappropriate, already is establishing internalized homophobia. So what happens from there is the child, and even when we grow into adults, will be rewarded and will receive positive reinforcement when they act heteronormative. So when Billy puts down the Barbie dolls and picks up the baseball bat in baseball, or plays football, sometimes even myself, I was told, don't stand like that, or don't hold your hand like this, butch it up, don't talk that way, don't walk that way. And as a young child, we were taught that this is wrong behavior. So usually about the age of 5 or 6, people start to realize that I'm looking at that gender and not that gender, and socializing and understanding that there's something different about yourself. So let's fast forward to when people have their recognitions and coming out. And it's normal for, all genders, binary, non-binary, heterosexual, homosexual, to be experimental sexually, to understand curiosity. But when you do kind of come to a conclusion of what you are, the coming out, and people often talk about that gay pride or that pride of being free and coming out. Except the reality is that something that sounds really fantastic because we're being authentic starts to happen. We are actually not fully prepared for authenticity. And what that means is, and to give an example of internalized homophobia, I used to work in a nightclub. It was a gay nightclub, and there was this very muscular, very masculine-looking guy with a beard and very dressed very lumberjack. And as I make my voice deeper, and he turned to me and he said, "Why would you let someone like that in here?" And I was like, "Who are you talking about?" And he looked at an effeminate man, a thinner guy who was a little bit bedazzled, showing his plumage, being comfortable with himself is the right term to use, comfortable. And so I turned to him and I said, "Why is his presence affecting you so much?" And so that's the question. When you see somebody and you're bothered by their femininity or their masculinity, why is it bothering you? Why is it affecting you? Why do you get angry or bothered by them? And so if we analyze that, part of that's internalized homophobia. Society had a major shift about people being out and it being where it is today. And that was due to the AIDS epidemic of the 1980s. When AIDS came about, people had to be much more out and vocal to ask for assistance and help when there was no cure. People perceived as, well, actually, let's step back. AIDS actually was called GRID originally, gay-related infectious disease. And I want to pause there and talk about stigma. If an actual disease that's extremely contagious and deadly is called gay-related, already you're putting a target on the heads of the LGBTQ. So you already have internalized homophobia, and now you have a next level of it, because now there's fear amongst the LGBT of death. Stigma and shame are major killers. And I wanted to bring into the topic of that substance use. And statistically, members of the LGBTQ community significantly have higher rates of substance use and addiction than their heterosexual counterparts. And why that is probably is we're going to skip back to when we're socialized at the age of 5 and taught not to be authentic, that being this way is bad when we are our authentic selves, and that our behaviors and our feelings are unnatural. So now we're adults and we're trying to do what is natural. We're finding someone that we like attractive, someone that we want to be intimate with. And even though it's the most natural thing, there is this uncomfortableness, fear, shame, guilt. And so oftentimes bars, alcohol, substances, allowed the shame and guilt to be repressed so that people could finally act on their natural feelings and desires, which was normal. Except that because of the stigma and shame, a lot of times people consistently needed a substance to allow them to facilitate the sexual act. That's a whole nother subject on addiction and substance use. But I wanted to just pause right here and start the next segment. Hi. So let's talk a little bit more about internalized homophobia. So one of the things we want to talk about is avoidance, avoiding public displays of affection. So if you do have a partner, if you're uncomfortable, even holding their hand in public, if you are uncomfortable with displays of affection, hugs, kisses, that's something that might be attributed to internalized homophobia. It also goes to concealing one's sexuality and also publicly identifying a partner or someone you care about by the opposite gender. Instead of saying my boyfriend, sometimes someone will say my girlfriend, which is oftentimes, definitely a sign that we're not comfortable with our sexuality. Feelings of shame and guilt, negative self-talk, the term pray. So we're here to talk also a little bit about solution and what that looks like when it comes to internalized homophobia. And we spoke about, things about shame, avoidance of intimacy in public displays of affection. The most important thing is first acceptance. And it's hard. And sometimes there's a grieving period because there's times that we feel like we've let people down. Society, religion, faith, there's many different aspects that affect our perceived notions of what normal and healthy are, or what is considered correct values or morals. And again, I want to emphasize these are social constructs. So one of the things that I recommend is, of course, as a therapist, psychotherapy, and being able to talk through these feelings, building a network of a community. One of the basic foundations of a healthy So, just to wrap up, we were talking about community and the importance of building community as part of our society. I wanted to emphasize that being able to recognize that what we are feeling is natural and healthy, and being able to talk to people about it. Again, I'm going to emphasize a therapist, but anyone that you really feel supports you and loves you, make sure that you do lots of self-care. Take time. Definitely get to know your LGBTQ community. Most cities have community centers or LGBT centers that have activities, information, classes, which builds a support system. It's really, really important to be authentic. And that's really the moral of the story, is that authenticity does lead to happiness. And being able to express who you are naturally and without fear is the next step to taking control and being able to process internalized homophobia. So with that, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.